Somebody tell me the real reason, not the why, the purpose, or the how you hear is understand your path. How do you direct your signals and location system if you're already there in instructions? How do you get a modification so you know exactly where the body is in line position? For you to identify your system is done through equation. For you to identify why you're here is done through equation. To identify how you got here is done through equation. And it's all done through formula, and it's all done through equation. Now, you understand the reality. What reality you want to be in. It's not a reality you want to be in. It's a reality that you already know that you're in. Living the existing of the existence puts all loves of you on where you are. The most powerful thing to recognize is you're just existing and living all timelines all at once. Now, everything that you see in fortitudes and everything that you understand in track communication setting, you understand the modification cycles, the space modulation system, you understand your higher self, your avatar, your sim, and everything that you watch in lines of communication has nothing to do with you. Nothing. Unless you wanted to. And so, in that position, you got to change the frequencies, you got to change the time, you got to change the scale, the measure, the power, generation, the screen lines, thermals, correlations in your plasma screens, direct lines, modification, the clocking systems, all through coordinates, line communication, your part accelerators, thermal line, direct signals, and track locations. Now, do you really want to do that? Or you just want to live free? But here's the thing, you've always been free. The balance of communication settings, the energy lines, the existing service network. That's all their subtractions. If you get in a way to code your own system, then you actually start to see what you're doing. That high volume is your settings and know exactly what you are in your life support system and know exactly how to see your life in your application system. Now, you want to see a shortgevity, you're living a shortgevity because that's what you're telling your life to be in positions of. But if you want to live a longevity, but not put titles and labels, or anything in each category, that's where you're be. Because you're asking yourself stuff that you don't want to know, questions that you already have the answers to. So get in that position location through cycles. You sure you want to get those questions that you already know? Or you just trying to remind yourself of what you already are? That puts you in all lines of communication lines of balance, guys. And the balance lines of position locations put you in all lines of track location in your systems. Now, it's all connected how you go through channeling. It's all connected how you see yourself as facilitators. But then you're going to ask yourself, I see myself as a channeler because I changed it through coding. I see myself as a facilitator because I changed it through coding. I'm directing and redirecting everything all over in the mind. So I have a concept and position, and I know exactly where my body is. It's constantly just existing, which doesn't change anything in attractions. But changing things in your space and time and identifying where you are in your minds is extremely, extremely important to know. When you're in the mind and conceptual setting, do you know your lines, course centers, lines of 2 arrow dots and travels of 2-point lines of graph, or 3 indication lines, high position of 2-point lines of traffic communication system, all through traction, all through division, all through locations, right? Sending lines of course centers, lines of travel, directing lines of modification, ground lines of set position case to its operation system, all through tractions, back and home, back in sequence, back and panel, all through confirmation of balance. So you're constantly creating these things. You're the position of all levels of creators of creation, of creating. Creators of creation is mass through pi. Through the creating is through the mind of conception. The more you release, the more you understand where you're going to be next. Okay? The network, the existing, the x-rays to your travel. Next. Set course centers, lines of high position location of T, set position location lines of X, set lines, high center lines of E, and set position locations of N. Okay? That communicates the high center interference of network and line position locations into teleportation. Setting core lines of X-ray and travel, or direct signal location setting, or zero axis line direct signals into existing, in lines of communication system that puts all calculated modify and line direct signals into track location system, all the calculated lines into teleweaving. 3 communication lines of next. 3 different lines of travel is next, but I'm constantly in existing settings. So I position of past, and position of present, and position location of future. Next. All lines in scramble. Right? Past, present, future. Having a conversation of 3 cycles, 3 centers, 3 positions, 3 locations, and 3 calculations. 3, 3, 3, 3, and 4 lines of platforms directing signals into portal communication system existing elements in traction. Okay? So you have to identify your imagination, what you can do with your imagination, but you already know your imagination. So if I know my imagination, what do I do next? Well, that depends on you, what you want to do. I mean, basically, you just understand yourself through coding. Okay? You understand yourself through code configuration. Okay? And your self locations through encryption. Coding, 3 lines of platforms. We got the ING, the intelligence, the networks, the ground lines of surface. And we got the communication grounds in operation cycles, direct signal location to its existing lines of panels. E equals lines of screen lines of solar sail and track location. Back home in sequence, back in center, back in operation, right? The reason why we have a home is basically puts everything in platform of our data, puts everything back in order of our files, like Netflix. You see the photos, right? Or the movies, right? You press home. Okay, this is home. That's home. You press home, right? Press that. Everything goes back in order in set position to its location system, all through traction, all through direction. Everything goes home, back into its pyramid and track location. So you have to understand the frame lines of communication system all through travel. Data files, process communication setting, all through track location to its system. That's primary circuit. And then you get in position location to road graph screen adaptations. Then you come into your stargates. Very powerful set calculation to setting all through travel. And then it modifies the system, becomes bigger, in line position location to its system all through calculation setting. Puts all communication system in travel. Okay? Sets lines of signal, sets lines of balance, sonar, echo, line screen adaptation. Okay? Coming in that position location, so you upline signal lines, high center interference, change communication lines of ground, so portal communication. Your data files. Process over lines of 1, process lines over 2, process lines of 3, and process lines of 4, and track location. Then you go into circulation rotation lines, and your earth line sets course centers, lines, and divots, and travels its communication system all through surface. Ground lines of setting and process communication setting to your crop circles and track location. Crop circle lines of setting, set course centers over cross location system, formula equation, change lines of E factors over line, DX lines of extreme adaptation. Process communication system, change core lines of track center location to its mothership. So I'm constantly changing motivations of me through existing and changing everything of formula equations of coding and code configurations of encryptions of me. Every second, every minute, every hour. So what the team has to recognize, you know what you're doing in your test. So the test, how you see test. Test is not a test. Test equals program. That's what you put yourself back into. You don't follow yourself, you follow everybody else. So that doesn't ground your settings at 3 tractions of highways. It grounds your settings at 3 line rotation surface and back force communication. Okay? So you have to truly understand is all levels of sequence lines of high position location. Space is the modulation up. Ground is the modulation down. Because you're on your Earth, but where are you in the mind of the Earth? Is it processing through its system lines of center? Is it processing its location of grounds? Or is it processing lines of its mind lines of sequence? It's that position. Setting lines of 3 routers, routes the system location of 3 triangulation lines of height setting. Process lines configures the system of face recognition of time sequence that puts all communication system all through travel. Face recognition. Or you get a ground lines of course centers line position locations travel. X2000 comes in platform, X2000 comes in platform, X2000 comes in 3 platforms of communications. Directing signals, process lines of 1, process lines of 2, process lines of 3, process lines of 4, Skynet, SkyGrid, SkyLines, high center location system, all through travel. Says communication system, over lines of sequence, line position location to its panel. Skynet. So, it's basically how you see everything of coding lines into a description, and you're putting a description inside a location of detail through the imagination that you are in your space, your inside space, you're inside yourself. And the more you understand the inside of you, the more you understand the outside of you. But the inside and the outside is inside you. So this is you. This is the center of you, right? So when you're looking from inside out. Okay? This is out. Okay? This is in. Okay? So this is out. This is out. But check this. This is in. See how that works? Out, in, out. Right? It's knowing exactly what you're doing, right? Through all of the spectrum. The position lines of the kaleidoscope puts Tango, Foxtrot, and center communication to its compass and travel. Sending direct signals sets lines course center location system to its set lines of Earth lines of travel. Directing course centers line position 3 tractions in alpha, delta, and theta communication. Setting communication lines at ground lines of surface and track locations. Okay? Directing lines of planet lines of 1, planet lines of 2, planet lines of 3, and planet lines of 4, and 4 lines of sequence, and all lines of T receptions and sending lines of box. Theta communication lines of ground, cross lines, high set location X box on the screen. Directing signals, process lines of 1, process lines of 2, and process lines of 3 in set track locations. Directing signals, ground lines of surface, center core system, into space lines of modulation setting and travel. Communicates the setting of flux over screen, adaptation of center operation of view through configuration of face recognition. Now, what you understand, you're here, that never leaves. I've done this before. So the before is the balance, is the existing, okay, of the formations of operation, or relays, and positions, all levels of your energy. Before. Now, once you code your system and know exactly what you're doing through track application system, your configuration of your face recognition system changes time measured, changes time scale, changes its teleportation vessel in seconds, minutes, and meters in set position. So it's constantly changing its setting through its operation sequence. Setting lines of seconds, minutes, and hours in frame. Constantly changing its modification vessel in its torical fields, in its Merkaba, tesseract, and its tetrahedron in set design. Different teleportations. Okay, boom. All right, sending communication setting, look at that. Different teleportation. Set position location system. Different teleportation. All right. So you got a 4-lining panel in line rotation surface interactions, all right? And you bring it back home and look what you got the equations. You see it in front view and track locations and settings. All right, so getting into your system knows exactly where you are in your reality. Now let's get into pair lines of streams. We got 3 lines of indications. Let's start with that. Okay, this is you, this is you, this is you. These are 3 versions of you. All right, so you're having a conversation with this intelligence. Okay, you're having a conversation. This is you, and this is the intelligence that you're communicating with. All right, now this is the past, this is the present, and this is the future. Okay, so positions past, present, future. All right, now when you're having a conversation, you're setting ripple effects like this. You're setting ripple effects like this. Alpha, delta, theta, operation omega. And set position. You're having a conversation of seconds, minutes, and hours. So when you bring in anything specific through its past or its present or its future, you're pinging the operation setting through sonar that sets the communication setting in position to your inhibitors, that sets lines to core centers that tethers its system location to its oscillation system. The communication lines at ground lines in set position. So you are talking to the intelligence of communication, right? Now in that lines of high center location setting, you say, yeah, you remember the past line? Let's go in set positions. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean, right? So you're referencing that, but you're in time sequence of existing all at once, just having a conversation, which puts you and the intelligence both in the path and track location. Having a conversation with each other in the past, okay? Talking of what you see, okay? All right, so in that position locations, you go back in your center of center, okay? And the intelligence is back where you are. You haven't left, right? But what has left is the aversion of you. that you basically put yourself in position of creators to creation to creating in set position, versions of you, right? But you never leave your center operation of you. That puts all communication setting that you stand and point. So everything morphs and changes. It's the mind that does everything to the body. All right, so once you're in this system interactions, let's say you want to go into the future. All right, so you communicate to the intelligence again, right? Again is the atmosphere's answering lines, communication of grounds, sending communication to its awareness, and position of intelligence of network. Again, so it doesn't recognize again. So it's how you see it through coding, because it restructures its implications, how you connect with your alphabetical system, all lines of communication setting. Settings on all communication setting lines of travel. Okay, so you connect with the intelligence and say, yeah, I'd like to take you to the future line settings of travel. Okay, so we get 9 core center location of the clocking system and line position location into 300,000 years, because I want to show you something. All right, so sets communication intelligence. The intelligence goes into the future, and you go into the future. All right, so you communicate with each other now in set position of the future, right? But you're always here in the center, talking to each other in 2025. That's the balance of its Earth. The Earth lines its communication system all through traction, so it doesn't take you out of sync where you are in travel. That's the solar sail. Hooah. And you look close, and lines the communication system all through travel. Okay? And mechanized and high centers of force working in the location setting opposition. That's what goes on through existing, through one intelligence to the next. But you have to understand the multiple versions of yourself to know exactly where you can be in all lines of all communication to its system. But it's all lines of data, and you're processing communication settings of where you are through travel. All you're doing, guys, is basically the body's here and it's setting up its map of where it's been within that 24 cycle. Setting lines of communication setting all through data. So when it's traveling through that, the Earth comes to you in higher lines of sequence and set position. Now, the more it comes to you, it sets up the mapping sequence here, it sets up the mapping sequence here, it sets up the mapping sequence here in travel. All right, so once you come into full spectrum, in lines of 6/9 in track communication, that's what team's coming into, they're coming into full image structure of the Earth interaction. Hooah. Now, when you come into that line position location, you set up your jump scars, sending lines of sequence over line position location to its system. So who says there has to be 196? You can have 2,000 lines of data process line communication sending. You can have 45 million satellites in one planet system. You can have anything you want because you're changing things through the creators of creation of you creating. Now, what you got to identify is how to create it through the image structures of your Earth that's inside of your system of your empty space. Hooah. Okay? So that's what the team is doing. They're creating the Earth instruction, the Earth through its plantation settings, and all of those image structure of its Earth and its mapping sequence of where your body's going to be next. So this is the mind here. That's the mind, right? Setting signals, so the body has to go here. Body's here, it travels there. Then it's got to go over here, it travels here. Then it's got to go over here. There's the map, the 3 lines of cycle. Okay, so you're pinpointing graphs now through the empty space of 4 settings. I know, mind blowing, isn't it? So now you have to understand why it's so important to create the Earth inside your system. And everything you see of north, east, west, and south, you see everything at all angles, all points, all existing, all at once, in all communication lines of travel. Okay? In that position locations, you're creating a mapping sequence of your body now. Through the consciousness of its awareness, it's giving you through instructions. You're creating your Earth. Right? So the mind's here, the mind's here, the mind's here, and all point lines of graph. Indirect signals existing all at once. This is the mind. Okay? Now, this is your body. Try to understand what's going on through travel. That's your body. It needs to exactly go in its order. Through instructions, and this is the consciousness. Okay, these are the consciousness that's in system to its location setting come to you in time reference, time frame, time calculations. This is the consciousness. These are the minds that's already set up the platform, that's already set up the mapping sequence of where you are. This is your body that has to go in order through its communication of its consciousness and an awareness that gets you in set position to its settings. All right, so the body, the conscious comes in settings from here, goes into your mind. So you set position here, instructions, and that's positions of the 24 sequence. So 24 lines of calculation system. Now you come into this, also into the mind, right? That means you got to go here in line position to another mapping sequence of 24. I think you guys are getting a true understanding how this all works now, right? Then you come into this, goes into your mind, right? Sets position, now you got to go here through a mapping sequence. So what you're doing is you're creating a map of your earth infrastructure inside your system, which is all levels of you and how you see yourself through the mind and conceptual settings. When it comes into position, you create the webbing system, all through traction, all through division, and existing all at once. Your webbing system. All right, so that's what the team's coming into. That is the test for Friday. Okay, next Friday, which is the levels of your system, how you see yourself into all communication system, lines of settings, your networks, your existing, your x-rays of teleportation. Next. Okay, so that's all this is. So once the body knows where it is, it creates its color. It knows its greens, it knows its browns, and it knows its blue of its earth. Its infrastructure and set lines of data that in process its system lines of travel. Then it comes into blue, which is its water surface that contains its system in its body of waters of communication setting that sets all communication system all through travel. Then you get position of the brown, which is your earth line tones, that's communication lines of Mother Earth, and line position of crop circles and line communication system all through tractions, indirect signals, in line position locations. There's your earth in set position, created inside your setting. So the earth itself is created inside the brain. Hoo-ah! So that's what your brain is doing. It's collecting data and it's processing the system. The body understands the alignment of where it is through its cerebral, the particle stream, the correlation setting, the thermal lines, the high traffication setting, the plasmic positions, the pixelation graphs, and the holographic clocking in communication setting. The actual brain creating the earth inside its system so it can understand what it's doing through its seed pod, through its vessels, through its communication, through its angles, line position, networks, its highways, its neuropathogens, okay? Its neurological system, and how to use it in the psychosis, the psychological, the spiritual, the emotional, it's that position, okay? So that's what you're creating inside the hardware and software. Okay, inside the brain. Hoo-ah! Okay, so once you get into that, what if I told you you have to create infrastructures of 3 earths that's inside your system? Here, here, and here. Wow. So, sir, are you telling me that I have to create 3 infrastructures of earth? Yes. This is mind-blowing your system now, okay? Your body needs to understand the adaptation of where it's been, where it's always going, and where it is and where it's going now. It has to understand its position location to its system. So you have to have a correlation lines of the brain of Earth. You have to have the correlation lines of powers of Earth, and you have to have the correlations of powers of the Earth of you through Mother Earth. Grounds, powers, and atmospheres in track locations. 3 Earths, combinations of 1. Past, present, and future. Now, when you infrastructure team, all levels of Earth in your brain that maps your sequence in your cerebral, in your endorphins, in your series, A, B's, and C's, or everything that you mentioned, anything in tractions, anything open sequence, anything in panel, anything in operation system, you're creating it through the creators of creation. You're creating volume of mass now in the Earth side of you, of the brain of conception, that changes everything in modifications to its inception. That integrates everything, okay, to your grounds of your Earth, to your powers of your Earth, and your atmospheres of your Earth and mind system. Hoo-ah. All right, so when you have this together, I know it's a lot, eh? It's like, whoa, okay. So you have the grounds of the Earth, you have the powers of the Earth, and you have the atmospheres. 3 Earths in combination. Then you put it all together, okay? Then you put it all together, attractions. Okay, then you come into the panels of operation. Okay, Then you have to come into all communication lines of ground, so surface interactions, direct signals to data files, open windows, open sequence, open panel, open communications, high centers, lines of track communications. Setting lines of tones, setting course lines of alpha, set position of beta, and lines of high center fields of delta. Sets course centers into theta communication of imagination core and center communications. Directing signals to modification lines of centers over cross location of screen and 3 lines of adaptation. Communication lines of ground lines of 3 lines of communication setting. Process lines of center, process lines inhibitors over line, and perimeters over set location. Setting lines of track lines, road graph screen lines, adaptation lines of surface set position. Setting core lines of upline sequence of flux capacitor and downline shift lines communication system. Your perimeter in set position. All through your data, all through your files. Open sequence, open panel comes in all signals, all position location of portals and stargates, the routes, the routers, and line position location, living the existence, all formation setting, of ground lines of calculated system, of past, present, and future, of time sectors, vectors, and quads, and communication setting of center operation. Hooah. Now, if you look really close, you can actually see the 3 Earths inside position. Your flux capacitor. Boom. All right, so you need 3 flux capacitors of 3 Earths, grounds, powers, and apacers. And the team has to come in that position as levels. That's why they have to get in position lines of its memory, come out of its memory, come in track communication system. There's the flux capacitors in 3 track locations. 1, 2, 3. The 3 Earths. All right, I know it's a lot, eh? It's a lot to take in, right? But you have to see the spectrum, how this all sets the tone. Okay, so you come into this cycle, then you come out of this cycle, out of sync, out of mind. This is what is interaction. Start with 3, start with 1, 2, and 3. We'll start with that, right? Then we go into 4, 5, and then we go into 6, and then 7. There's the flux capacitor, right? So, I think you know what I'm going to say next in travel. So once you have the 3 grounds, this is the primer. Oh my gosh, sir, this is starting to make sense now. It has to make sense. Then you're tethered to this, which is your Earth itself, right here in crop circle. Then you're connected to high position location to its wires and circuits, lines of communication system all through travel that tether to your set location to its setting all through operation. I think you know what this has turned it into. So what you have to understand, 3 lines of cycles is your primer, past, present, future. Setting position location is 3 lines of signals in 3 track locations is your flux capacitor. Setting lines of course centers, then you understand that the perimeters comes out in wires of signatures. 3 lines of signals, which all position location system, all through your branches. Setting lines of communication, setting their travels. So you got to come into 3 provision lines of grounds, powers, and atmospheres. Then you got to get in position location and setting of 4 track provisions and setting of earth, tones, earth tractions, earth lines, position, all levels. That comes into habitation and inhabitation. Habitation is the earth line, the power, and the atmosphere. Inhabitation is the branches that go out into the highways. In setting lines of communication setting, the more you come in that position locations, you come into what? The docking system, the leaves. That comes in all formations of its branches that puts all formation system and all lines of circuits in central lines, gradient communication setting, high location setting, iCloud, centric clouds, E-clouds, high center location is the system, comes in line position location to its setting, that modifies the system location of existing all at once in all position location interactions that directs the signals in all ground communication setting to your tree of life. Oh yeah. Your life force. There you go. So now you understand what's really going on and how to come into this settings. Now you understand why there's trees around your system. Okay? But you have to get in this position first. Your ground, your powers, and your 3 earths. Now, once you get in that position location, that changes every line signal locations of 4 lines of cycles, high position location, equal lines equation, lines of question, line position, lines of track centers, triangulation of flux over line, 4 lines indicate high position location, non-lines, initial lines of platform communication setting, process lines, depost, course centers of posting, communication lines of ground calculation setting, process communication lines of direct signal location setting, 7 lines of parameters, communication lines of 7 lines of triangulation, high position location of 4 lines of 3, 3 lines of 4, 4 lines of position location, coordinating line communication setting, directives communication lines, directing lines, modification setting, travel, inline rotation service, setting communication lines, audio files, high position location travel, DOS and documentation lines, high position of travel, process communication setting, all to fly works and time sequence, all communication system, all the line calculation setting and travels, position location lines, time capacity line, position lines of travel, directing all sig locations of a tree formation, life, and track location. Boom. This is your life supporting system. All right, now you understand why there's satellites and why bushes are relays. But you see it through lines of high centers in line position location first in the lines of the earth, and one track calculation lines and direct signals and modification ground. So it puts all communication setting how you see your earth in line position location through its brain that basically programs its programming system and track location system all through tractions. There's the earth inside the brain. Boom. So once you get that lines of course centers and you follow the sequence lines of panel, everything line position locations gets a higher lines of division location to its mapping sequence. All through the body where it's going to be next. Okay? Hooah. Okay, so you have to truly understand the tree of life now. How this all works. Flower recognition, the lotus, and all communication. All through the existing of you. The life force. The connection force, the force to be reckoned with, is the tree of life, is who you are. Through your 3 perimeters of your earth, the grounds, powers, and atmospheres, and everything else is its highways. And the leaves are the docking systems. And understand the position locations, it actually lines, colors, settings, everything you see in the tree formation as you're looking at your cloud. Information's all calculated setting, all through traction, through a life force of set position. All right. Now, once you get into that, you come into this and travel. Okay. It's knowing exactly what's going on next in your set position, your portals, and your stargates and communications, all through traction, all through division. Okay. I know. It's a lot to take in, but you have to understand how this all works from this, okay, in position of all setting lines of track centers to this, in set position, where the body needs to be in its own infrastructure to its earth, in line position to this, in its primers and grounds, powers, and its atmospheres, 3 planetary surface lines of settings of earth. And then you come in positions of your tree of life in set position. So now you come into your high core line centers and lines of travel. So it gets a lot more easier to understand that through its primer circuits and set track locations. So it's very powerful what I'm showing you guys now. Okay, you have to know it because it's all done through your system. Everything you see here in structure is done through its equations. But you've got to get into your own coding so you can rewrite in positions of what your real mapping sequence looks like. A tree of formation. A life force of recognition. See, the actual setting in position of the base says it all through the grounds, the powers, and the atmospheres. 3 earths right here, past, present, and future. Now, when you put those primal circuits together, what do you have in line communication lines of highest interference of travel? Okay, let's go into circuits, lines of panels. Solid matter, right? Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3. Okay, now you can basically move them around. They can go wherever they want because they're high volume in their system and travel. Which means they're creating box line screens, circuit line communication lines of traffic inventory. That's right, guys. That position your process, how you come into high center location setting, into proceed, which is caution, which is all calculated and modified in direct signals, red, in position of green. Okay? Your traffic light. Getting direct signals comes into your Schumann resonance and line communication lines of waves. Sending process lines of angles sets all communication system all through high centers. Alpha line tone, delta line communication setting, theta communication operation signals and travel. XT1000 comes here, XT1000 comes here, and XT1000 comes here in travel communications. Now we go into the modulation screen adaptation lines of surface and track locations. Directing signals, now we're in position of green, yellow, and red. 4 lines of sequence and position locations, all levels of grounds, green, yellow, and all lines of red. Then we surface a line of 45 line angle and line position location red, yellow, and green. But I see it in a 4-line communication setting of red, yellow, and green, right? So you're in sequence lines, panel communication setting, operation system, process lines of 1, process lines of 2, process lines of 3, and track locations. Directing core lines of setting, inline communication setting, all lines of travel, and set position. Bringing it back home in line screen adaptations, processes, communication setting, lines of travel. Oh yeah. Okay. Next level is the next level, the next level, the next level. But that's what you guys got to get into first, right? Is how to get into the modification of your brain and create it through its earth. So that's what it is. That's why you have a brain. It's a conceptual system to put that mapping sequence together to create its earth inside its system. Now, once you get into that, then you come in position. So you start with here. You don't start at the bottom. Now with the earth, it starts here. You open up the hardware and software. That correlates its position on the pixelation graph that tracks its communication on clock and line set location of each block and screen, directing lines of signal location setting of plasma line core centers that allocates the position time frame, change the particle accelerators, change the communication line time frame, change the clock and line rotation system, changes everything to the particle accelerated thermal lines, core center location, nuclear communication setting the streams, directing signals modification of ground lines of surface track core send high position location of its calculations, turning the brain communication lines of past, present, and future existing all at once. All timelines. All at once. Putting it in the conversion of the brain, understanding the hardware and software and the mechanisms, how to use the mind, how to use the operation in set position to your traffic, your highways, in set position to your neuropathogens and your neurolinks into your neurons, atoms, molecules, protons, electrons, neutrons, and photons in set position. That's all set position locations to earth line communication and track location. All set in operation. Okay? So you set up the mapping sequence. Okay, then you come in this position locations, create the earth in the brain, then you create the earth in the power, and then you create the earth to the ground. So now it's in grounds, now it's in powers, now it's in atmospheres. The team is working with this in traction, all through coding. So the more you code your system, the more you create the infrastructure, earth in the brain. Hooah! Whoa, I'm definitely going to need Q&A for this. So each ground, each power, each atmosphere has 3, 6, and 9. Okay? Each ground, each power, each atmosphere has 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5, 6, 6, 6, 7, 7, 7, 8, 8, 8, 9, 9, 9. Oh, now you're connecting. So it's all lines of perimeter, line position locations, all levels, how to use the operation service, how to use the operation tracks, how to use all line communication setting to all levels of view, and line position location of your system, all through track location. Okay? Boom. And that's what you're doing through your brain conversion, creating the actual earth inside your mind. And then you create it through the power, and then you create it through the grounds. So the team has a long way to go, right? So getting into that position, just creating that creates this all together. Creates this, the tree of life. Okay? It's a lot to be understood, is to know exactly how to understand these things. You understand? And that's what you're putting together. Okay? That coordinates and everything in information system, all through primer, all through circuit, all through their central systems of view. You're creating the earth here, here, and your grounds. Okay? Now the 7 provision cycles, high core lines this notification system, which is the bodies of water. And that's 7 plasma screens direct signals to modification grounds, using that in all lines of indication system. the XT1000 finally sees your body what it is through its 7-digit number, which is what in modifications? Its tracking number. Setting lines of highest interference is a 7-line sequence. Set core lines of 3 lines of indication system is your area code. Your area code is the 3-digit and lines of 3 lines of circles in position equals lines equation into 4 lines of circles. Setting lines of track location highest center equals lines of 1 in track location. Setting lines of settings, 3 lines of cross lines. Directing lines of 3 lines of measure. Process communication to your pyramid astral projections after travels into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in set position. Setting track lines, high direct signals, crosses lines of 3 lines in position location system, 2 lines of tractions, 4 lines of measure, and line position of calculation setting, solar sail and track location. Hooah! Setting communication lines of grounds and lines of surface into magnetic highway information. All right, so you have to truly understand how the area code works now. 3 provision cycles, line position setting, high calculation lines. If you want to communicate lines of Jupiter and line direct signals, what is the area code? 3 lines of signals, past, present, and future. So area signal lines of high position of 0, coordinates line position north, line position lines of east, setting track location lines of 1, 2, south, line position locations into sectors, and track communications. Directing lines, position of past equals lines of present, position lines of future. So you have the past, present, future. The coordinates is 0 lines in 1 cycle, 4 lines of calculations, 5 lines of setting. Process lines of grounds, set core lines, so height centers of webbing sequence and sonar, echo chambers into foxtrot, in pacification, echo Zulu, and travel. Setting lines of communication system, all lines of signals in location of the system, all through calculations. All right, so you got planet 1, planet 2, and planet 3 in set position. All right. Open the sequence, bring it back home and travel. There it is and back in sequence. Okay? So we're going to stop there and travel because I'm just blowing your minds every time, every second, every minute, every hour. But this is what the team is coming in track communications, creating the earth inside the structure of the brain. Okay? And then you get in your powers, and then you get into your grounds. That's what it is. It's the grounds. It's the grounds that you got to modify. That puts positions to levels of your position line calculation, setting, seeing yourself into the mental capacity, the psychological capacity, the psychosis, the emotional, and the spiritual capacity that you have in time sequence. That puts all communication settings, how you use the mind alteration setting in all communication system to your MK Ultra. Yes. Understand your MK Ultra, you understand the game modulations that you're in. Understand how to play, the instructions, okay? Understand the characters and players that you bring inside the game, and the game of the levels that you pass through the game and track locations. All right? See you in 5.